Welcome, Annie here for Lavinia World. Today we'll be creating this Grateful Fairy card. These are the products we use. Harietta Fairy 234. She's really pretty with her little lantern. The mini maple leaves, Lav 290, and the Tutti Designs Always Grateful die. This is what it looks like. I'm only going to use this pumpkin, a little bit of the flowers and leaves, and the word grateful. I'll use the rest on another card. And I'm going to pull in from my stash a cloud and grass stencil. Now this is in the Lavinia World shop, so I will link below one that is. So here's the grateful and the pumpkin I cut out from glitter cardstock. And I went ahead and stamped and cut out and colored Harietta and her little lantern. Unfortunately, my little lantern fell apart when I was cutting it, but it's still here, and I'll be using it. I went ahead and colored her with Copic Markers, and I pulled in some yellows and oranges in her lantern. Also, we'll be using Versafine Clair in Pinecone, and a variety of distressed oxide, faded jeans, dried marigold, wilted violet, fossilized amber, and a little bit of black soot. We'll be using that around the edges and on our grass. We'll be also, let me get Harietta off of here. And I left behind, I guess, a little foam adhesive from her, so I'll set this to the side to apply it back to her. Okay, we'll be using Bristol smooth cardstock to do our ink blending. A layering cardstock in violet, and an A2 side folding card. So I'm going to move everything aside so we can get started. On the Bristol Smooth, I'm going to use my blending brushes and the Distress Oxide inks. Starting with dried marigold, we're going to use the clouds portion of the stencil, and I'll start at the top with the dried marigold. I'm going to go ahead and get a napkin to just dab off the ink. I don't want it to be too heavy. I want it to give it that nice autumny evening cloud effect. And I'm just brushing it on. I move my stencil over so I get different shapes of the clouds. And I do about 2 rows of each of the colors. Now we move on to Fossilized Amber. I'm doing the same thing. Now I didn't bother to clean off my stencil between Dry Marigold and Fossilized Amber because they're close enough, and that also will help the blending transition. I will clean it off now as we move on to our next color. The next color will be Faded Jeans. No, wait. Yes, Faded Jeans. I pulled out violet there. Didn't mean to. Here it is. Faded Jeans. And again, moving my stencil so I have a variety of clouds. Now we'll move on to Wilted Violet. I cleaned off a little bit of the ink, not all of it. Again, I dab off just a little bit onto my paper towel that I have set to the side. And when you do this, you want to go light, not too heavy-handed, or you'll get really dark color, which is great if you're doing more of a spooky or Halloween type background. And I chose these colors because I think they coordinate nicely with the colors I use to color her, which I used a violet tones and yellow tones in her dress and a little bit of blue for her wings. Then I did yellows and oranges in her lantern. Now for the grass part, since it's supposed to be an evening, I wanted to do it in black. So I'm using a smaller blending brush because those little grass stencil pieces, I didn't want them to bend. I was worried they were going to bend. Actually, they didn't, well, but I was cautious. And I'm just going to move it around just to give like a couple layers. I believe I did like 3 full layers of these to fill in the space. And then after a few minutes, I get tired of using this little one and I pull in one of the bigger ones. One of the bigger blending brushes. It wasn't quite giving me what I needed there, so I just grabbed a bigger one. And I'm filling it in. And I'm going to use this black soot all around the edges of my sky as well. So I fill in the grass area first. And I have glitter still on my cardstock here from the die cuts. That glitter got everywhere. I didn't realize that cardstock shed so much. So now I'm going to, as you can see, I went across the top, both sides, just trying to get a little bit to create that night scene. And I check it again, and I realized when I blended in the bottom, I lost a little bit of the grass, so I went ahead and redid it a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute and clean everything off so we can continue making our card, because I don't want all this black ink to get everywhere. I wipe off my stencil and everything else. Oh, I'm sorry, before I missed the spot, I jumped ahead a bit. Before I go ahead and wipe my area, I'm going to put in some Shimmer spray from Imagine Crafts and some Heidi Swapp Colorshine. Now, bummer, Heidi Swapp Colorshine is no longer available, but Imagine Crafts has some Shimmer spray in gold, and there's a variety of other gold sprays out there. I will be sure to find one and link it in the description box below. So for this Shimmer spray, I went ahead and did it all over. For the gold, I'm just going to do little splashes of it here and there. I want bigger ones and smaller ones. So for the bigger ones, I kind of flick down hard on that little nozzle part. And then for smaller ones, I just tap it gently. Ow, sorry about that, I hit my hand. And then I pull in my heat tool to dry it. Yes, I cut that part of it out because it was a lot of drying. Yeah, the bigger spots take a bit more to dry. Right, so now that everything is dry, I'm going to go ahead and stamp our leaves. These are the trio of maple leaves. They're the mini leaves. And we're going to have them as they're flying through the sky. As you know, in fall, well, sometimes here in Florida too, we get leaves that, fall off the trees and they just go all over the place. We do because we have two beautiful big ash maple trees in our front yard. So our neighbors don't really love us too much because the leaves get everywhere, but I love them because they're beautiful trees. So we do our best to keep, raking them, but nature's nature, it happens. So I'm putting back my die cut pieces and by Harietta to make sure that where I put the leaves isn't going to be in the way or too much. So I'm going to just go around the edges, and I even stamp off in some places, not the full stamp, just a little bit of the leaf as if it's flowing off of the card. I want to make sure in this area that I put her, you don't need that many in that area. I'm going to put somewhere you just see that come by her wings or behind her wings. But I'm not going to stamp anywhere that you're not going to see. Okay, so I do a quick cleanup, and now we are ready to adhere all our pieces of our card together. So I trimmed a little bit off this card, this panel here, about 1/8 of an inch or so all around. So I have a little bit of this layering cardstock just popping out. I'm going to put some art glitter glue on the back and adhere my panel. Pressing it into place. Now I'm going to adhere our die cut pumpkin and floral swirl here. Just putting little drops of art glitter glue on the back. Not too much, and if anything seeps out, I clean it up really quick. The good thing is art glitter glue dries clear and it won't ruin your project. However, Distress Oxides react with anything that has moisture to them. Okay, so I'm putting back that little piece of foam that came off the back. And I put foam everywhere except for her little staff that holds the little lantern, because those are tiny pieces, really thin. So I'm putting a little bit of art glitter glue and that on her staff there, on the tips of her toes, and the edge of her hat. That's little swirly parts of her hat and dress. I'm adjusting her little staff here, pressing it into place, making sure all the foam pieces stay behind where they're supposed to be. And then I'm going to get her little lantern. It has some foam on it, on the back as well. I'm pressing that into place. And there's these little flowers that came out of the pumpkin. I'm going to add those on the other side just to bring a little bit of that orangey glitter to the other side. I'm going to put one by her foot here, or by her staff I should say, and another one near the pumpkin. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing, little dots to the back of the sentiment, which is the grateful, and I left a little bird that was attached to the word grateful on there. I think it looks really cute, and since it's up there, it's getting all that nighttime shimmer on it. That's what at least I'm saying to myself. I'm convincing myself that's the effect. Alright, so I'm using my tweezers to put it into place because it's quite finicky and it has a lot of glue on the back. I didn't want to get my fingers in it and spread it everywhere. Alright, now that our panel, we have all our components on our panel, we're going to adhere it to our card base. So I'm putting a little art glitter glue in the back, making sure I have some on the corners so it doesn't peel up. And this panel is the same size as our card, so it's an A2, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm placing it and pressing it down to make sure it stays. So now I'm going to give you, first I'm going to put some little finishing pieces on our card. I'm going to put some little crystals. These are from Trinity stamps. Little crystals by the staff near that little flower, one near the pumpkins over here, and one up near the bird or the sentiment. Then I'm using the really tiny ones. Just add a little more shimmer because, you know, there isn't enough shimmer on this card. Okay, and then I'm also going to bring in some black little hearts, and I'm going to use that as the center to my little flowers here. So I create sort of a sunflower kind of effect because they have those gold pretty petals and then the little black centers. And I just did 3 of them, the 3 bigger flowers on the card. So little tiny black sequins. So I'm going to give you a bit of a close-up here. Let me get my camera to focus. Okay, so on her skirt, there's little dots. I went over them with a Jelly Roll pen and gold metallic. I also went over her dress with a sparkle pen as well as her wings and the lantern. So let's go over everything we used. We used the stencil, the cloud and leaves. We used the Tutti design die, always grateful, the mini maple leaves, and Harietta the Fairy here. We used some Versafine Clair and Pinecone, Shimmer spray, Colorshine spray, and Distress Oxides. Just a few things to create this fun fall card. I'll have everything listed in the description box below. Thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.